Oh, you got it? It's like probably not either way. She doesn't make it easy. She doesn't make it my mother worked for a company here in careers, and when she started out, patching people. You go literally patch the cord, okay, what you're talking about. It was long distance, you go to this one, the long distance person will bring it to the next people. It was crazy. My grandson did whoever's computer that is about to start. I'll let it go. That's not your computer, is it? It's about to be started. Yeah.
Hey Matthew, is it SouthWalk one word or SouthWalk two words?
It's SouthWalk one word.
One word.
The W camera.
It's an update. Yeah, it might be 7:30 start.
I don't think I cannot, I cannot do a hard reset.
Right.
All right, yeah,
but it already started.
If I sit here, I'm gonna mess you up with it.
No, you'll be good.
It'll be fine.
I didn't know if you called in, maybe it was where.
Like I'm not going to like, the head you have to HDMI cord. Okay. Gotcha. Hopefully it's a quick update. Yeah. He called me like it's automatic. But that's how it goes. That's happened. Before presentation. That's exactly when they happen. That's exactly when they're meeting in 10 minutes. The conference we were running downtown.
You're going to be getting around, aren't you? Last week I'll be in Derek's way.
Except we're live right now, so don't talk trash about anybody.
Like we had 500 people, but there was thousands of every single person in that building had to like there and register. Yeah.
You have one of your cards. Seems like I got your number that day when I was there because I was trying to connect you with the installer. Yeah, pretty good. Would this be your third store then? Your third store? You had one at Dixon, one in Columbia, this one would be your third. Sir? Sure. Yeah, I would. What's the time frame there, do you know?
I'm
decent occupancy out there. We got plans.
Right. Well, if you get it, what are they? You have to like bid for it, or
We have a little bit of inside track. We've built that.
well, there's somebody over here has like 10 or 12 of them. Somebody has like
This guy has several, and he's got builders. He's got other builders he's used, so we're in the running.
yeah.
Well, we don't need them. Because I live here.
Yeah. There you go. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Are you going to be talking to?
No.
Hey, Matthew. Again, we're hot mic. One thing to remember, if somebody's really far from me, just restate the question. If I'm up here near you, right, just restate the question.
We'll get started in just a minute.
I got to ask you, when did they change colors?
Yeah, this is just a hat they just released. It's all black, gray, white. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's my team. I
The
mean,
Packers?
yeah.
I knew that. I knew
That's
you.
my team, but when you come in with that gray on
Yeah.
the first, I didn't see the Packer on the back. Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I go, when did they turn gray?
I was so dang proud of you last week in that planning commission meeting.
Hot mic.
Oh, no worries.
I looked at so much of stuff and I'm hearing this from so many different places. It's gotta change somewhere. We gotta do something somewhere.
I don't want Byron nor I want the microphone near us. So, in fact, I might need to move if the microphone's right here.
We should just start having a conversation, a pre-planned conversation.
Yeah. Oh, now that would be really fun.
Overthrown.
Hello, Nolensville. I'd like to just open up with prayer real quick here and say thanks for this opportunity. So, Father God, I just thank you for the opportunity to gather here. We just thank you for blessing our community with great people and all the opportunities that surround us. We thank you for the freedom that we have in this country to do so many wonderful things. I ask your blessing on this evening. In Jesus' name, amen. So, basically, the meeting is probably gonna go maybe an hour, I would think, something like that, depending on how many folks have questions or comments. I'd like to take a few minutes to just take about 15 minutes maybe and kind of tell you about the vision and the process and everything that leads up to a project like this. Kind of hopefully shed some light on the mystery, because I know that developing a project is something that before we started this, I didn't understand the complexity, and it is complex. So I'd like to share that. But first, a little bit about me. My name is Matthew Chilvers, and this is my wife, Julie. We've been married 31 years. We have 7 children. We live just out of the city limits of Nolensville, off of Clovercroft in the country. And we've been here for 20 years and raised our family here. Have watched the community grow, made a lot of friends. A lot of those friends are here too. So I'm, pleased to see that. So we've been a part of seeing the growth and watching the traffic increase and all the things that go along with it, and can totally relate to the concerns and the excitement. So my background, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 20 years old. My wife and I, we were working on Volkswagens, had a little company called Bugsteins, and we, from there we started a manufacturing company. We built that up and sold it. I started a musical instrument chain of stores in Michigan, and had that for 20 years, and at the same time also ran and continue to run Outland USA, which is right here in Nolensville. And Outland USA is a website, outlandusa.com, that we sell sporting goods and camping and hiking gear and apparel, footwear. We've got employees that live here in the community, and we're proud to be here in Nolensville, where we don't have to fight traffic going downtown and or some industrial park in Laverne or Smyrna. So we're very pleased to have our business here, local. I did sell my musical instrument chain of stores and use the proceeds from that to invest in this land. And that's where the whole SouthWalk project has begun, as we had the opportunity to buy land on Nolensville Road, and really wanted to get involved in being a part of seeing Nolensville develop in a positive way. After I talk for a few minutes here and kind of tell you some more about SouthWalk, then I'll take some questions or comments from anybody. No rules, just whatever anyone has a concern, we can address it. I just want to make sure that facts are delivered and not rumors and people imagining things. That, like I say, the objective here is to educate and communicate and make sure that people understand what we're trying to accomplish and why. About SouthWalk, I have a team that has been working on this project with me. Of course, my wife has been a part of it from the beginning. I've got my architect is Steve Durden, and Gonzalo is also on the architectural team. We also have Michael Dewey of Dewey Engineering. He's not here tonight, but he's done all the engineering. And then, of course, a few other subcontracted services. But it takes a group of people to do something like this. I've also had some, friends that have given input. I mean, even Byron Boyd's here tonight. He's given some input. We've had input from other developers. All of this contributes to the vision that we were able to come up with. And so the vision of SouthWalk kind of started a little bit while we were planning a trip to Italy with our close friends, the Tufos. And originally I was going to develop just like everyone else develops in Nolensville, put a strip mall, and we were going to develop the back of the property with some office and warehouse type of use. But we were thinking about Italy and wandering through Italy. We've been there in the past, and we really were excited about that kind of lifestyle, that kind of, everything's close up on the street and people are interacting and there's some neat shops, and it just was a great experience. I'm like, we need to try to get some of this in back in our hometown. And, we wanted to bring that here to Nolensville, and thought it was not such a crazy idea, because it's the way that development is starting to happen throughout the country. That it's pulling the buildings together, putting the parking behind the buildings, and letting people interact within a cohesive type of development. So really the European towns have done this for ages. So we really thought that was pretty neat. You can go on to the next slide. Of course, gelato is the whole reason that we do in SouthWalk.
Free gelato for you.
I'm thinking I would love to walk down to Nolensville Street and have gelato. I think that, and literally we laughed and joked about it. So you can go ahead and show the next slide. I'm pretty much going to show you slides of gelato all night long. That pretty much is the vision here. So anyway. The idea of a community town center type development, and it isn't town center, it's more of another portion of the town. So it's not just there was a town square development that was proposed, a market square. Our project is also mixed use, but the idea is to bring people together. Whether it's a rooftop restaurant, like you're seeing in the picture. These are some example pictures of other developments that do the same thing. This is one that really inspired the SouthWalk development, called Avalon. And every winter, for a couple of months, they put an ice skating rink in their plaza. And as crazy and far-fetched as it sounds, we actually have leveled out the plaza area of our development, and we worked hard to try to make it so that we could create a level spot up there large enough that we could bring this kind of thing to Nolensville as well. They also have a ice skating rink in I think the Fountains in Murfreesboro, and it's very successful. It's, you know, there's chillers that allow ice skating to happen even when it's above freezing. It's not something that's undoable. You know, the idea of the plaza is for it to be multi-use all through the year. You know, it's a big dream, it's a big idea, but with you know, smart people, the right money behind it, and you know, a development that makes financial sense as well as sense for the community, we can achieve this kind of thing. That's the goal. Other, you know, plaza events, this again is the same plaza in Avalon. I mean, they have all kinds of things. They have, you know, yoga on the lawn, they have music, they have, you know, they do stuff throughout the whole year. There's you know, street fairs and festivals and tastings and all kinds of things. Their plaza is about the same size as ours, which is a little bit over a half of a football field, maybe a little bit more than that when you you know, measure it from building to building. It's greater than that, but the actual plaza itself is, you know, roughly imagine a half of a football field of usable space there. So that's the idea. We think also doing a mixed-use development in Nolensville will help the town's budget. Everybody knows that the town needs more services, that our volunteer fire department is going to have to be paid at some point. We have, you know, just a growing community, and these things cost money. More police, more fire, more emergency vehicles, you know, the things that cities and towns have to be funded by something. And really the two options for a town to you know, raise tax revenue is through property taxes, which, you know, incremental property taxes are probably going to happen at some point, I would think. It's inevitable. We have very low property taxes in Nolensville. But you know, a very big help, and it can mean millions of dollars added to the budget, is a big retail development like this. That the tax dollars that come from it, you know, a good portion of that goes to the city, the town. So we're, you know, we're hoping that this will help the town in the budget. Why mixed use? Why people have asked, you know, some questions about, you know, what's mixed use? Well, mixed use means retail and restaurants and office and dwellings, whether it's flats or townhomes, all kind of put together in one package. And a mixed use development or urban burb, there's you know, a couple of different names for it. That the idea of a mixed use development like that is that there's some efficiency in building multi-story buildings. You know, you have one foundation, you get multi-stories out of it. You can then do the extras that you don't see on a simple building or a simple strip mall. Extras like architectural embellishments, landscaping and hardscape embellishments that make a place great. Art, a plaza, that central plaza, any fountains, any of those type of features cost a lot of money. And through mixed use, you have kind of two things going. You've got an efficiency of the build, but you also have built-in people so that those merchants and those restaurateurs want to be there. There's people that go to the offices every day, so they want to go have lunch. There's people that live there, so they want to go down and you know, have dinner or buy something from a specialty grocer. You know, those type of things are all part of what makes a mixed-use development work. In addition to that, you know, there's a cohesiveness that mixed-use developments, you know, there's a kind of a master planned concept, and therefore you can not have walking and parking and features of the land that don't work together, and where engineers are trying to solve problems. Instead, you engineer it from the beginning with all of those things in mind, so that that it works well, that it's easy to walk from place to place, that from parking to where you need to go is all thought through. So that the idea of master planning is to solve problems that happen when you just have random developments on little lots. And that's really the alternative. Let's see. So that, moving on to the alternative, I guess if we're flipping through and looking at just some other mixed use developments, one of them, this is Santana Row in San Jose, California. You can go ahead and flip through a couple more. That's in the middle of their development. They have a couple little buildings. One of them is a little wine bar. This is Avalon. They also have a little building, much like what we have on our proposed plan. That there's a little cafe in that little building. This is just the typical retail with residential above it in Avalon as well. It's the same place that you saw the plaza with ice cream rink. This is the alternative. If you don't have mixed use, you don't have the efficiency, and you don't have the planning, then what happens is a big parcel like our 27 acres gets chopped up into little parcels and sold individually, and that's originally what we were going to do: sell some and build on some. And when you chop it up, you get a strip mall, another little strip mall there. You can continue on, storage, whatever goes on there. You get the idea. And basically, it ends up being anywhere USA, just like everywhere else where where it hasn't been planned, that you end up with this kind of end effect here: a restaurant, an oil change, mini storage, a strip mall that has various things that's minimal, and it continues on. I don't think that that's the best thing for Nolensville, and that's one of the the biggest reasons I wanted to have this town hall is to communicate that we feel that this is not the best plan. The best plan is to plan it out, make it beautiful, make it something special for Nolensville, and that's what we're doing. Just a couple more things. The process. So the process, we come up with this dream, we come up with this idea, we spend months working on it and making drawings and trying to solve the problems that where it all works. This is many hours, hundreds of hours of architectural time, of engineering time, of time going out and looking at other developments. It's kind of a big puzzle. And once you finally get it worked out to where it makes sense, the parking is adequate for the type of uses, that the buildings work together, that works with the lay of the land as much as possible, the stormwater problems. Once you start working through that stuff, you end up with a site plan like this, and really we're at what is called the concept stage. And what we're trying to do right now is bring a concept to the town of Nolensville, and the town planning commission and board of mayor and aldermen look at the concept and they vote on it. And they vote on it whether they want to pass that concept or whether they don't want to pass that concept. And we brought this to the planning commission at the last meeting, and the planning commission was very concerned about there being residential in the commercial area. They didn't like as much residential as we have. We have a total of 168 flats or condos, and then 50 townhomes in the back of the development. And I can point to that if I can figure out how to use this magic device here. This area here would be townhomes, which would be behind Nolen Park, which is right here. So we are looking at townhomes there, and then the buildings themselves are, in the front, we've got a proposed grocery. We're hoping to get a small specialty Sprouts or Fresh Market type grocery that would use that. We have to attract it. We would love to have any of the small grocers that would, be a complement to the Publix and Kroger, and be, a neat thing for Nolensville and for SouthWalk. But we don't have a tenant yet. We're still in the concept stage. We don't control that. Those tenants, those merchants have to want to be there. So they want to be in places that are attractive. They want to be in places that are great. They want to be in places where people are going to shop there. It's all about business for a small groceries. For us to attract them, we show them that, hey, we're doing this great thing. There's homes in here. You know, these people are going to shop at your store. That's the story we have to tell them. We're thinking maybe a standalone restaurant, something like an Uncle Julio's or a J. Alexander's or something like that. And those are single-story buildings. The rest of them are three-story buildings with retail all in the front, up on the street, and there'll be office above these, office above this one, flats, condominiums above of these. You know, they're a kind of a variety. Each building has an individual plan. So we brought the concept to Nolensville. Nolensville Planning Commission. I think they've never seen anything like this. It's brand new. So there's probably some, shock factor that goes along with it. I guess because they weren't ready to vote a yes, we have deferred it for a month, and we're going to go back before that Planning Commission in June. And we're going to ask the Planning Commission to pass this concept. Passing the concept doesn't mean it's a done deal. Passing the concept is the first step. After Planning Commission approves the concept, then it goes on to BOMA. That's your elected officials, that's your mayor, that's your alderman that you guys have elected. And with BOMA, the same type of thing. There's discussion. We talk about the project. If there's any issues or things that can be addressed, we address it. If they ask for us to reduce the residential, then the whole project doesn't work. And I think this is where the hang-up is right now is the Planning Commission said too much residential. We don't want that. And the fact is it's the residential that gives the efficiency that allows us to make the whole thing excellent. So without that, we're back to strip malls. So it's hard to find an in-between. What doesn't work is it's not like Goldilocks where the porridge is just right in the middle. There isn't really a middle. Either you do a mixed-use development, and this is really considered a small-scale mixed-use development. There's much larger ones in larger cities. Nolensville would never be able to handle that. But at this scale, I believe Nolensville is big enough and ready, and as we continue to grow, this is great development. But the project does not work without the residential. So that's where we're at. If we do pass the commission, it goes on to the mayor and aldermen at the BOMA meeting. If they pass it, then there's a public hearing as well, and the public hearing, gives everyone a chance to speak on it. And I think they vote again. I'm not sure if there's 2 votes or 1, but it does has to pass through BOMA twice. So that's after that happens. Then the next step is, that if I have the town's approval, and this is now, a few months of process, then I have to go to other developers or, financial institutions. I've got to raise the money. Project like this is very expensive. You read about projects, they say, well, this $1 billion project or this $100 million project. This is probably about a $150 million project overall. Matthew Childers does not have $150 million. I'll have to have some friends here. So that, together with other investors or other developers, if they see an attractive project, they say, hey, we think this is a good thing. We can invest in that. We're going to get a good return on our investment. Then they will want to invest their capital, and the project can then move forward. And with enough invested capital, the bank says, hey, you got enough skin in the game, we're on board too. And so it's just like a down payment on a house. If we get 25% down, the bank says, you know what, that's pretty serious commitment, we'll get behind it. I have begun those discussions, but without a approved concept, it's impossible to continue on with those negotiations because we don't have that ability yet. So to spend time with lawyers and work through all that detail, we've got to have the approved concept first. Then the next step is that we attract the tenants. We want to control the tenants that come into this development. We would like to have, well, as far as you're moving on there, Gonzalo, Yeah, well, yeah, as far as the buyers for the condos, and the townhomes, go ahead, we'll start there. We would, of course, try to attract young couples with no kids. We would try to attract the empty nesters. These are the people that typically buy this type of residential. I'm sure there'll be some families in there as well, but as you can see, the ones that seek this type of development are typically the no kids type of families. I think that the residential concern stems from a burden on the school system. Yet we have new neighborhoods going up all the time. Those are a guaranteed burden on the school system. I believe our development is less of a burden. It's not. There will still be some kids in the development, and I'm sure that they'll go to school. But the majority of the seekers of this type of condominium and townhome are empty nesters or millennials with no kids or singles. There's people without children are the primary type of user. As far as the commercial tenants, attracting them is a matter of having a great plaza. They want to come into a great development. If we've got this centrally planned development, we're going to attract better than the very basic stuff. We don't want just the typical outdoor mall kind of national tenants. We want to have the neat stuff, the stuff that you find in the East Nashvilles or the Nations or the other parts of town where, hey, this is the better restaurants, the ones that you've got a real chef, not just a Subway or something that's a national type of franchise. We want to attract really neat tenants, really artisan focused, boutiques, higher end, type of places to shop and eat, rather than just the very basic. So that's the vision for the project, and that's the steps. From there, once we do have a good amount of tenants, then we of course engineer out in great detail every single aspect of it. Everything has to pass fire codes. Everything has to pass all the building codes. This stuff is very established. This is not something that we control. This is something that we have to adhere to specific rules, specific guidelines, and of course it's going to be built to those standards and beyond. How long does all this take? And this is a question that gets often. Is this 15 years? Is this 10 years? How many years? Well, if we can get it past the concept passed from that point, it's probably about a year to get going. And that's if everything goes well and the economy stays strong and we attract the type of investors and we get some anchor tenants, and it takes a while to get going. So if it does pass, remember, we're working our tails off behind the scenes and still trying to get the rest of the pieces together. It isn't dead. We're not set free till it passes this town's planning commission in Boma. So that's pretty much the whole concept in a nutshell. That's my, I guess, almost 25 minutes here. At this point, if I haven't answered your question, and I'm sure some may have been answered in there, let's open up the microphone to anybody, and we'll do our very best to answer any questions. If you just have a comment or concern, you're welcome to state it. This is our town together, and I believe that with all my heart, and I want to be sensitive to everybody that has something to say about it. Anybody want to start?
You first.
I'll kick it off. So I've
You come up
heard.
here, talk to Mike, come on.
Well, the online mic is right here, so
Okay,
everybody
all right.
hears me. Yeah. One of the concerns I keep hearing is parking. That is a lot of parking. If you could pull up the whole plan again, just to show. Have y'all done counts on the required amount of parking for this size of a development? And if you have, are you over, under? Is there any wiggle room to maybe back some of that out and create a little bit more green space?
Okay, that's a great question. The way that the plans currently read, it appears that we have a couple hundred extra spaces of parking or so. The reason that there is the extra space of parking spaces is because of use change. We don't know, we don't have the tenants yet. So we don't know if we have somebody that's opening up a shoe store or dress shop, or if they're opening up a restaurant, or what type of store and what type of use can determine how much parking is needed. The objective is to have enough parking, maybe a little extra parking, but the last thing we want to do is get caught in the pickle of not enough parking. I just had to, we're opening a bike shop at Outland USA. I guess here's a little shameless plug. We're opening a bicycle shop out of Outland USA, right next to our main building on Haley Industrial. And it's, we had to have that use change to retail. And we didn't have enough parking. We did not have enough parking to make it from business services that it was to retail. I had to add parking behind the building. Thankfully, I have enough room to carve out 7 more spots, because that's what we needed. And that is the example when you fall short of parking. So we don't want to be short of parking. We want to make sure we have ample parking, especially, let's say we're doing a special event. Let's say, a weekend in October, it's a chocolate tasting festival or something really neat like that. And we plan on trying to have those type of things happen at SouthWalk. We're going to want to have a little surplus parking. We're not going to want to be short and put a strain. There's really not even place. They can't park on Nolensville Road. They have to park here. Is that answer your question?
Yeah.
Matthew, I'm David Huffman. I had a statement and then a question. I turned 50 last year. My daughter graduates next weekend, or this coming weekend. I am a prime candidate for someone who would consider selling my 3,800 square foot house on a half-acre of land with everything that's going on, and doing something like this because of the convenience factor. So, and what it could become from a community perspective. So I wanted to simply say thank you for being entrepreneurial and taking the kind of risk that you've taken and the kind of money you've probably already spent on this project. My question is, how many phases? I think I saw the other night you had at least 7 or maybe 9 phases. Do you have any sense at this point, if you had most of the funding raised, how those phases, 2 years at a time, 1 year at a time? What do you know what your intent is at this point?
So that's a great question as well. How many years for each phase? How many phases? And what are we looking at there? Well, it's very likely the way we currently have it phased, and it is 7 phases. You are correct, David. That's there's a total of 7 phases, and really those are just some strategic dividing lines on the project. The intent and the way the project is designed, it has to all happen. That's the beauty of it, is it works together. The phase 1 is the 2 front buildings that are up on Nolensville Road. And phase 2 are the next 3 buildings just to the east of that. There is actually a phase page in here. Just keep scrolling down, I think you can get to it. Okay, here we go. So, it's very likely that phase 1 and phase 2, as you can see there with some dotted lines. I know that this drawing is black and white and a little more difficult to see, but we'll do our best to zoom in. Okay, there we go. Excellent. Phase 1 and phase 2, which kind of cover those first 5 buildings. It's very likely that those 2 phases will happen simultaneously at the beginning of the project. From there, the heart of the project is phase 3, which includes the plaza and the buildings surrounding the plaza. Phase 3 will likely happen maybe 2 years after phase 1 has begun. I think it'll take about 1.5 years to complete phases 1 and 2. We will want to have a certain percentage of the commercial space leased out to be able to continue on to phase 3. I anticipate the way Nolensville is happening, that's not going to be a problem. I think we'll get that spoken for, and we'll move into phase 3 and begin to market that, and that's kind of where the magic happens. That's where there's 2 little buildings in the middle with a roundabout kind of drive. That's where you've got other buildings that surround the plaza. Probably will be some restaurants, rooftop restaurants, outdoor seating. Really make it that whole part of the development where people want to hang, linger, meet up with friends and have dinner or a glass of wine. So that's kind of what phase 3 is all about. And then phase 4 is a continuation, more retail, more residences. Phase 5 and 6, those 2 phases, right now we have this additional retail and additional office in phase 6 with some residents above it. It's possible that, by that time, now you're maybe 4 or 5 years into this project, that that those things could change a little bit based on demand. We may have a need for another medical plaza, kind of like what's in front of Kroger over there. There could be a need for something like that, and if we had somebody that wanted to use that space, we might put them in either building I, which is right across from phase 6 or part of phase 6. It's not necessarily the prime retail area, but it could be used for some of those other services. So that's the idea. Phase 7, the townhomes, it would probably happen somewhere in the phase 3 or 4 range is when we would begin to work from the backside. The road connects. I mean, if get my little pointer out one more time. The road, this goes out to Nolensville Road here. We're going to have a traffic signal right here. It is warranted. It is not a proposed traffic signal. At this point, the traffic study has determined that we will need one there. This road then connects with this road, which then goes to Rogers Lane, which currently just dead ends into the woods here. And that's in front of South Point Church, where the indoor soccer complex is over here, and another shameless plug, Outland USA, and Outland USA Bike Store will be right there. But this will connect up, and people will be able to come from the industrial park and come through and take a left at this light, or if somebody wanted to go and hey, we're going to go grab something to eat, then go do the indoor soccer, they can do that. And we will be able to work on phase 7 from the back end. We don't want to start phase 7 too early, because we feel that it's better to try to have the amenities of SouthWalk in place, which will increase the value and the desirability of townhomes that would be really next to an industrial park, but connected to SouthWalk. So that's the phasing plan. So that's a super question. I appreciate it because I didn't go over that at all. Anybody else? Yes, come on up and talk in the microphone so everyone can hear.
I'm good here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just so I have this straight. So aside from the townhomes, there's going to be flats on top of the commercial buildings, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and maybe some 3 bedroom.
Okay, great. Because I lived in a flat in Europe and loved it. It was great. So the parking spaces, does that also include the flat tenant parking, or do they have separate parking available to them?
There is a shared parking element to this, and that, believe it or not, with as much parking as there is, it would require even more if there wasn't a shared parking, which there's a study to determine, how much shared parking can be done, and that has to do with the share between the flats and also the office and then the retail as well. So the shared relationship there, office people go home, they don't need it. People come to their flats at the end of the day. And so they look at those different time segments and determine how much parking is going to be used for each hour roughly. And that reduces the parking by doing that. Maybe 10, 15% or something like that overall. I don't know what the percentage is exactly. But yes, the flats would use some of the parking. We have not determined at the concept stage here if we would reserve some for some of the flats. We may do that. There is currently proposed parking underneath these two buildings here. So there would be, because of the land kind of goes downhill this way, it would almost be like a basement garage, if you will, a basement parking ramps in those two buildings. And certainly that would serve those residents and make those particular units more desirable because of the covered parking. We also, behind building M, we would like to have covered parking for the owners of those condos in building M as well. So some of them will be covered, some of them will not. It'll be a combination of both.
Okay, so is there any kind of underground parking available? I mean, is the ground here that rocky where they could not incorporate that?
There's one rock in Nolensville,
Okay,
and we all
right,
share it.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, you just have to just start digging, you'll find it.
Right.
The rock is definitely prohibitive of putting underground parking. The lay of the land, like I said, creates what essentially ends up being like underground parking here. There's not a lot of opportunity for that. We would love to have had that, but we don't. Just to elaborate or go a little further on the parking, there has been, a question asked to me privately previously about structured parking or parking ramps or parking garages. And parking garages are, it comes down to economics again. The land in Nolensville is not at the point where it is in Green Hills or even Brentwood or Franklin. The land cost, the ability to develop the land, and we're not at the density level as a community to justify that. And so it takes it out of the financial feasibility range again. Structured parking or garage parking is about $18,000 a space roughly. And to park this much, and put it into parking garages is about $20 million. It's a lot of money, and it makes the project just not work. I would not get an investor that would be interested in that. It burdens it too greatly. We can't rent out the spaces for enough to cover that. The price for real estate rental in Green Hills is more than it is in Nolensville. Even though Nolensville's coming up and they're getting $28 a foot for retail space or whatever, but you get down into where there's parking garages and it's more up another 40% from there even. So it's just the economics drive that. It's how much can you rent the space for? How much money does that make? Multiply it by the square feet, multiply it by the months and the years, and how much do you have into the project, and what's your payment? So you do the math on it, and it's much more elaborate math than that, but that's pretty much the crux of it. When you do the math on it, parking garages don't work in Nolensville. We don't have that kind of rents yet. So I just want to answer that too, because I know that had been asked a couple of times.
So I just have one more question.
Sure.
So with that gelato, would we be able to have a pond and a fountain somewhere to enjoy the gelato?
We do want to put a fountain in, and actually we have another member of the team that is probably going to be joining is a landscape architect. That's all they do is landscape, hardscape, and we haven't got at the concept stage. Those detailed landscaping and features are not yet, we haven't yet done all that work. It's the next step once we get the approval from the town. We intend to have a fountain. Either it's going to be here, or it's going to be here, or in the front of the plaza. I mean, we have to let the professionals, kind of look at it and say, what's the neatest way to do this? And just like my architect, Steve Durden, who's a very creative person, he has a relationship with, what's a...
Watland Landscape.
Watland, and we're exploring that relationship because he's another creative guy that we think we want to bring on board. Yes.
So I was wondering what you expect the flats to rent for, like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, just kind of a guess, and to be exact. And then also, I live in Nolen Park, so I'm just curious of when you're expecting to open up the walking area in between there.
Well, I think the logical point to open up the walking area, to address that first, the question is, how much would flats go for, and what would the walking area, when would that happen? So the walking area is really, it would happen when that part of the development is when there's enough ability for you to walk to, the rest of the square. It'd be tough to put it in and have you walk into a construction site, because there'll be rocks and dirt and machines and everything going on. So we'd want to wait till we get past that to have people walking through there. As far as the pricing on residential units, the intention is that they're condominiums. The town of Nolensville is not open to the apartment idea, even though higher end apartments is something that as a businessman we would love to be able to entertain. I think that was taken off the table, and maybe that option will open up again in the future. But right now, we're looking at it as units for sale, and we don't have pricing at this point until we get the rest of the cost in on the construction, putting in utilities, all that kind of thing. But it will be not entry level. It'll be step up product. This is everything we're trying to do is got a quality emphasis on it.
So
Yes.
None of these are for rent, they would all be for sale.
They would be for sale. That's correct.
Gotcha.
At this point, we would love to be able to discuss that with BOMA and look at the merits of hey, if there was $2,000 a month rentals, there's some people that just don't want to buy, or someone that is moving to town and wants to build a house and they need a place for a year, and there's a lot of need for better rentals, but that's a separate case. So we're going to try to get the concept passed with it as condos, and then maybe talk about that at a later date, and maybe the town will become more open-minded as they learn about our desire to keep this a quality development. Yes.
Do you have an architectural style that you would be leaning towards when it comes to the design phase? Are you looking at something that you would maybe see more in a London town when you're walking down the streets of London? Something
Steve, can you
1920s
go ahead
America?
and talk about this and the variety? Go ahead.
I'm Steve Durden. I'm with Durden Architecture. Gonzalo and I work together with Ryan. And I just want to say real quick, Matthew, I'll answer your question, but working with Matthew, I just want to say Nolensville's in good hands. Like, every project that I've done with him is the best warehouse I've ever designed. He pushes things, and I think he's pushed us on this project. Coming back from Italy, he started out with Anywhere USA plan, and then he comes back with a serious plan. I'm like, this is going to be expensive. He's like, I know, this is what I want to do. So he's really challenged us. I don't do a lot of strip malls. I don't do big developments like this. And so we've walked a lot of retail. We've walked a lot of lifestyle, life centers, and what we're trying to do is pick what works, pick what's good, and leave the rest, and then really bring in the town of Nolensville to make it local too. I mean, we don't want Alpharetta, Georgia in Nolensville. We don't want Green Hills in Nolensville. We want it to be Nolensville. So that's what's great about having y'all here today and discussing things like this, because we just want what works. At the other places. And
I think this question on the style.
But the style, yeah, I didn't mean to.
No, I
just wanted to say that, that Matthew's going to push this project to a really good place. Like, everything he's been telling me about the style, that's what made me think about it. I was like, that's expensive. Here I am trying to control it, and he's pushing for the best, like kind of a 19th century traditional, we're going to have to cut a little detail, but he's wanting limestone headers and details and the fine stuff. So I think that's why you're getting the push for this resident, to sell some condos, to sell some real estate, to put the money back into the development. And so, I mean, everything he showed me is way more than I'm like, we can't do that. And he's like, yes, we can. Like, he finds a way to make it happen. So it's more of a 19th century Main Street facades and stuff, but we want it to be a little diverse. We don't, I think it was great when we did Outland. I think just the concept of the base, the shaft, the capitol, but the Architectural Review Board, I think, did Nolensville just a great justice by putting codes on. But then all the buildings started looking the same, you know. So we talked to them, and they would review everything that goes on. Like it's called the excellent architectural review.
I think what Steve is talking about is the Design Review Committee, which is part of Nolensville's process as well, has also realized that you can't cookie cutter everything out, that there has to be some variety. And so they're working on a path of where it's, instead of just every building is exactly this way. It's gonna be this color, this type of design. Which the way the ordinances read right now, it's pretty confining.
It's hard to vary.
So they are opening up another path, which is you could do something different with the approval, but it would have to meet a standard of excellence. So a standard of excellence path is what we're told is something that is in the works, and that would be appropriate for our development, because there does need to be a variety, and there'll be some older looking buildings with some neat features, with limestone or architectural enhancements, and there may be some modern stuff in there, but the idea is to have it all work together and look natural and interesting and not sterile. The word sterile is what we want to stay away from. When you start doing the same thing over and over and over again, it starts looking like an ant farm. We're not interested in that. We're interested in making it very interesting, where when you're walking down the road, you're like, this is a beautiful place. And I think that's the goal.
That's what we're pushing.
Okay, great.
Matthew, I've obviously looked at this thing from the start, and when you first showed me the plan that it is now, at first, it's kind of shocking from what you were starting with. But as you and I were talking one day, the way we met all the people we know in Nolensville was at the baseball fields.
Yes.
And when we moved here, we had 3 young boys, and I had made the mistake of being the baseball commissioner. But that's where we all met each other. We saw each other all the time, and we all had young kids. And one of the things that I told you was the excitement about the court, the yard there, was that there's no other place really in Nolensville right now for us to now accidentally meet again all the time. You know what I mean? To just run into people. And that's a lot of what Nolensville is. I mean, Nolensville is not just us, having crazy discussions on 411. Some of that, I think, is because we don't get face-to-face more often. And so I think that's what excited me about the project, was that real core of being able to just accidentally run into people, all in one place. And right after you showed it to me, Nancy and I spent a week in Scottsdale, which happened to be the NFL draft week. We were very glad to be out of town. But watching the draft, and then, knowing how the Predators things went on and all that, and I think I told you, the vision of having the NFL draft and having a big watch party on that green with just anybody can show up and sit down, and having the Predators games, the playoffs, and the Titans or whatever, but being able to have a place to just all of us go sit and have a huge screen TV, brought in to watch that kind of stuff, is what really excites me about this project.
You're gonna get me all riled up, because that's the I think that's the part of the vision that gets me most excited, is by having a plaza and having some great places to eat and having some events, whatever they may be. It could be music, it could be a watch party, those type of things are street fairs, craft fair, the farmers market on Saturday mornings where it's a little tight where it is now. You know, if we can close off a portion of this and make it even bigger and better. I think those type of things would be exactly what we need, and it is exciting. And I agree. I miss the baseball days. You know, I coached baseball for several years and softball, and enjoyed being with my children growing up in that and running into people, meeting people, making new friends. We've made a lot of our friends there. And to have something that unites the community on a regular basis is a great thing. The more time, I mean, we do unite at Buttercup Festival, and there's things that unite the community, but the more opportunities we have for that, the more that, hey, there's a lot of new people, we get to know them. I was at the burger joint, the
Burger Shack.
Burger Shack, thank you. I was gonna say In-N-Out, but I didn't want to say that. So the Burger Shack, and I was standing there waiting for my burger to be done. This is a little while ago, and there was somebody sitting there, and I kind of, was just, they were waiting for the thing. We just kind of struck a conversation, and they were new to Nolensville. I just moved here, and I introduced myself, and they introduced themselves, and they were happy to be here, and it's like, hey, this is community, and they were new, and I wanted them to feel welcome, and I think running into them again and building those relationships would be a neat thing. Well, we need places for that to happen. Relationships are built on accidental encounters happening several times, shared experience together. This gives us an opportunity to have more of that. So, connecting us instead of dividing us, and then being just stuck in cyberspace. So I think this is a good place for us to really connect.
Well, it's obvious I agree with all of this, but to take it just in a totally different direction is I am looking forward and exciting on, let's say, on Friday night, when my husband and I want to go out to dinner. I've worked all day, I come home, and we've done this multiple times where we want to go to a nicer restaurant, and we do frequent a lot of the Nolensville places, which are great, and we do that. But on occasion we want to go and literally, maybe dress up or go someplace nice, and we're sitting there, and it could be, even a rainy night, and we are fighting downtown traffic or going to Cool Springs. And that's taking time, that's just, again, it's the traffic, it's the whole kind of thing. Wouldn't it be awesome to literally go not even 2 miles from where I live to have, those opportunities? Also Saturday morning when I go on my errands, when I want to go to a boutique. I mean, I will go to Green Hills because I know there's a little specialty store there, and so to have a nucleus that I can dine, I can have community, I can hang out on the lawn, on a big park bench, talking, all of that, just literally right within a very few miles is extremely attractive, convenient for me. And we're empty nesters now, so.
Yes, you are.
Yes, because our kids left us.
So are we.
That's Lori and
I want
Steve too.
I want the condo right next to Huffman.
Yeah, if somebody says retirement, I'm going to be mad.
From Nashville to here, like I would love an office building right there where it's lunch, client meetings, and it would be a reverse commute.
We're the same way. We go out to dinner with the Tufos. They're our best friends, and we do the same thing. It's like, do you really want to go downtown, park, and fight that all? It would be wonderful to go. We plan on having a valet parking area, and just pull your car up, let the valet take it, and go, run into some neighbors and have dinner. That's the idea. This is not a big mystery. It's exactly the thing you're talking about. A place where we can do that here instead of going everywhere else.
30A, bring 30A here,
There's one more image up there right now that not only could you drive there and drive to SouthWalk, but walking or biking, and we just kind of threw a little, hey, what's a 5-minute or 10-minute bike ride look like? And it's kind of hard to read that, Steve. What's the lines?
That's a 10-minute bike ride. That's about a mile, a little over a mile from here.
Because after everybody buys their bikes at Outland USA Bikes,
but there's a connection here, so you can follow the connection all the way through the neighborhood, like
We're going all right here. We're going to the neighborhood.
Okay, there you go. That's it.
That's it. Where am I at?
oh,
That connection there. But
that
it,
connects Nolen Park, and then go back to and Gonzalo commutes to Nashville on his bike, and he can beat his car ride, like from traffic. So that's, we know.
yeah, but he's an athlete too.
But the high school is down here, so Gonzalo was telling me there's one busy road to get over, I think, is that
Rocky Ford.
Yeah, right before, if we can fix the crosswalk here, it connects all these houses with a greenway all the way back to. So I don't know if we could get golf carts or bikes and different, no scooters.
Bikes.
No scooters. Oh, come on. Let's do it. I'll do it if you'll do it. I'm scared.
Yes, go ahead.
I actually have a couple questions.
Yes, go ahead.
I do live in Nolen Park also. So I absolutely, I was watching you guys on the night of the meeting on my phone at home, but I was watching the meeting. So I know that it's been asked a couple times, but the time frame, because we're like 3 years into the Hillside Center. So with all the phases, if everything, you had financing, if everything went great, the economy didn't take a slump, what would be the absolute perfect time frame to have that project complete?
The perfect time frame would probably be about 4 years. That would be the perfect time frame. I think it's going to be probably more like 5 years. I mean, is it possible to do the whole thing in 2 to 3 years? It is. If you just went gangbusters, you can do it, but you have to do it all at once and not phase it out at all. And I think there would be some financial challenges in doing that. There is a project going gangbusters downtown Franklin called Harpeth Square. That's a project that is another mixed-use project right downtown, and that is being done inside of a year. Really, I think they're knocking that thing out. It's crazy, but they're ahead of schedule and they're doing it all at once. Now that's downtown Franklin, and the financing is in place, and the gentleman that I've met with before that owns that. That's how he decided to do it. He's got pretty deep pockets too, so I guess he can do that. The timeline for this is going to take a little bit more time. The rock will take some time, putting in the utilities, putting it in the road. Those things do take time. I know that sometimes you see phases where there's machines sitting on a project for a while, and it might be in between something, or they might have run into something that they have to go and get looked at with the town, and it can take a month. And those type of things happen. It's inevitable that there's delays. 3 years would be very ambitious, and that would be things going really super good. Realistically, it's probably 5 years. That's realistic. I'm trying to be honest about it to the best of my knowledge. It's not 10, but it's not 2. And that's where it probably would fall out.
I know the connection with Nolen Park, I know Trish is here. As I was walking today, that's a very narrow section, because the homeowner, there is a fence on their property, and then it's pretty narrow to where the detention pond is right there, and that's where the pathway would go.
Yes, I know exactly where you're talking about, and I've looked at that. I've stood out there, and I probably look like some crazy person looking for lizards or something, because I'm walking around in their detention pond. But the idea. Yeah, we would have to. The idea here would be to try to reshape that pond and work with the homeowners association and the town and say, hey, let's, for the betterment of the whole thing, let's make a bigger path. Let's move some dirt from the other side of the pond and move it over to this side and be able to scooch that trail over and be able to support it. Another idea is to bridge that with a some kind of structured bridge. I think there's maintenance issues there, but ultimately I think that we can reshape it and make it work without affecting the pond or affecting the stormwater quality in any way.
That path that we drew was about 10 foot wide.
That's a 10-foot.
That's to give a perspective.
And I'll add something to the phases too. The whole thing has to be engineered at once. So the whole project, to get the right calculations for phase one, it's downhill. So we're gonna have to do a lot of the infrastructure up front for the other phases, for all the utilities and electrical and the sewer and stuff like that. It's all gotta be sized for the whole phase. So we'll be working on kind of the whole project at once. It'll still be phased.
That's correct.
Like we're talking about, but it's all gotta be thought about, and phase one has to be ready for all the other phases.
Yeah, to do phase one, we have to touch phase three. So
Even set, we have to design,
That's
set.
what we
Well,
have the
yeah.
hillside center next to us that's all cleared, so we understand, like,
Yeah.
we cleared everything.
And you know, Hillside, they really fought the hillside. I mean, they had a much more challenging excavation aspect of their project than we do. You know, we have some excavation things that we have to deal with, and you know, being rock, it is what it is. We have to, you know, be able to put utilities in, and that stuff has to be blasted. Those trenches have to be created. But you know, I'd rather give you a timeline that is realistic and hopefully even, you know, that we can beat that, than to say, oh, you know, 18 months from now you're going to have it, and you know, I don't think it's going to be that quick. I just don't. I would love it to be, and if we lease things out very quickly and things are selling very quickly, and it's like, wow, this is going faster, well, we'll turn off the pace. Faster is better, you know, for a developer, for investors. The speed is golden, but you know, there has to be the sense of reality here that things can only happen as fast as you know, other people are able to participate, sign leases, continue to make this thing go forward. Yes.
So the Market Square project, I could be completely off base here, but I think I remember an annual estimation of 1.2 million of tax revenue for the town. Have you done any kind of projections, or I know it's early, but
that's an unusual accounting step that they took to go ahead and run those calculations, which actually is beneficial because you can extrapolate numbers based on those. You say, all right, well, Market Square is this much square footage, we're doing this much. If their accounting is real, and that's 1.2 million annually, that, you know, we would be 2.5 times that amount. You know, and so it is, you know, going to be in that, what, $2.5–3 million a year kind of tax revenue based on whatever they used as assumptions and calculations on that. Most developments don't go through that step. It's an unusual piece of data, you know, it's neat that they have that. We have that to kind of pull from, but you know, it's certainly going to be millions of dollars. I mean, that's it's a lot. You know, when you get everything leased out, and it's retail and restaurants, there's a lot of money flowing through there. Yes.
I love the idea. It sounds like you're getting some positive feedback from people in the room, as well as I've read people online. Is anything changing on your end as far as presenting in front of the Planning Commission from the last meeting to the next meeting in BOMA? Or is it going to take the community who feels positively contacting these individuals, expressing our support for it? Is anything changing as far as in order to get it passed, I guess is what I'm saying?
That is a very high-powered question there. So that
We didn't get a lot of comments.
I want to figure out how to dodge bullets.
I guess next steps for people who are supportive of it.
Yes.
Should we all be contacting Planning Commission, BOMA?
Yes.
Do it that way. I'm just wondering, there's nothing,
Yes.
nothing as far as what you presented to, I wasn't at the
Let me answer your question in full. That's what I promised to do, and I'm going to. I think that our intention, after examining this further, is not to try to whittle it down. And, you know, I think there may be a desire by some of the commissioners and to, you know, or to say, well, go ahead and just take out the townhomes or take out half the flats or whatever. Let's just simmer down. You know, I think that idea of let's do a mediocre version or a smaller version is, I think that's going to be a challenge from a feasibility standpoint. And I don't see what the point is. If we go from proposed 218 units and then all of a sudden we go, well, let's do 180 instead. It's still a high density residential development. I mean, you can chip it down a little bit. And what's that? Is that a win to make the project riskier for the developers and the investors? That's not a win. Risky's not good. Risky doesn't attract capital to be able to make it happen. Risky's not a good thing, for the project. So for us to whittle it down and say, well, we've come back with a kind of a junior version of it or a smaller version of it, I think is not serving the project. It's not going to make it easy to sell to others that need to get involved in the project. So to answer your question, our intention is, to probably go back to the Planning Commission in June with a very similar or the same proposal and just revisit it, and hopefully through additional communication and events like this, just answering questions, and then even meeting with some people individually, which I am beginning as well, that get some of the fears, concerns, worries out of the way and get it approved. And yes, you absolutely should. Your elected officials are there. They're representing the people. They're representing us in Nolensville, and communicate with them. I mean, I think all the contact information is all published on the Nolensville website. There's email addresses for everybody. I emailed everybody and invited them to this meeting, and some came. So I'm up here saying this is what's going to happen, right? The effort to convince or communicate, not necessarily convince, communicate the will of Nolensville homeowners is, I think we need to tell Nolensville what we want. If we want this, then we have to tell them. If we don't, and that's what I kind of really would like to understand and get the feedback, and part of this is I wanted to get a gauge on, are people against it or are they for it? If the whole town says, or the majority of the town says, we don't want this, well, then I'm okay with that. Then I can break the property up and do what we originally planned, and I'll develop a portion of it, and we'll sell a portion of it, and it'll develop, and it'll be okay. I don't think it's gonna be bad. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be, we're not going to end up with these, trashy strip centers, but you might end up with some stuff that another bank, I mean, here's the people that want to buy land from me are another bank. I've got a storage place that would like to buy 2 acres, a Waffle House. Maybe some people like Waffle House. I mean, but they want to buy a piece of land. There's several, there was a restaurant that had interest. So there's several different uses where, we could do this other plan. If the Planning Commission says, no, we don't want SouthWalk, well, they're kind of forcing me to move down this path. I don't want to do this. I'm working my tail up here. This is stressful for my wife and I to get out in front of the community. I've never done any public speaking or anything like that, okay? This is a new challenge for us to get out here and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. What do you guys think? And tell me your comments and questions. I'm trying to do my best to promote a really neat vision and a unique vision for our town. The option is what we started down, and it's up there, is, those were a couple of strip center type plazas that we were going to put in the front and then, sell off the back lots to pay for it. And then in the very back lot, I was going to make that like a warehouse and office flex space in lot 5. I was going to, try to hold on to that as well. So that was the original plan. And we would be kind of forced to revert there. I don't want to revert there. So if you can communicate, help me out. I'd rather not do it, but that's the choices.
To expand upon that, if one of the town leaders is against a plan like this, one of the things they're going to say is, I did not get the feedback that people want this to happen. Don't let them say that. If there's 100 calls and 1,000 emails, they can't say that. So please.
I was going to follow up on that because I was at the planning commission meeting, and one of the statements that really hit home to me and bothered me tremendously, because I've lived in Nolensville 12 years, so I know I'm not one of the originals, but I've lived here long enough to say that I am Nolensville. You're Nolensville. Everybody here is Nolensville. And one of the statements that was made was, this is not Nolensville. Well, from what I've heard and from what I've spoken to, and I live in Nolen Park, so this is going to, I think a ton of us that are here from Nolen Park, we're all in support of this. So we're being hit hard by all the development around us. What do we get if we don't get something that is well planned like this? We get patchwork, and we get, I mean, you know, everything's compared to other parts of town, and you get Spring Hill thrown in there, and you get Antioch thrown in there. I think in Nolensville, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I'm speaking for most of the people I speak to, we want this. I mean, we want somewhere to go, and for the planning commissioner, you know, people that are here from the planning commission, I think if you do ask around, you will hear that most people want to walk around town. We want to walk, we want to bike, we want to take our kids in strollers, and I'm an empty nester. I want to leave my kids who will not leave my house at home. I want to move there, and I want to walk there, and I want to sit on the, you know, the tops of in the restaurants, and I want to sit in the square, and I want to watch everybody else's kids run around and let them scream at them. You know, this is to me what Nolensville is. What Nolensville is like what you've been describing is people. It's people getting together with other people. And if we don't have anywhere like that, we get warehouses and we get shopping centers and we get strip malls. That does not bring community together. And so I personally feel like they're not asking, and there's not everyone on the planning commission, not everyone. You know, there's a few that seem to be in support of your project.
Yeah, I think the planning commission is in a state of like I said, it's a bit of shock or you know, hey, this is the biggest thing, commercial project that Nolensville's ever seen. And you know, I understand, and I know and like a lot of the old timers of Nolensville, you know, for lack of a better term. I remember, you know, old man Mr. Vernon down that lives, you know, kind of by us before he passed away, you know, talking about and sharing with the neighbors how that traffic on Clovercroft is sure getting thick, you know, and you know, yes, the town is, you know, it has a past, it has a history, and the question is this Nolensville? It's not, it isn't, is it Nolensville past? No. But is it Nolensville future? I think it's a better Nolensville future than the alternative of a hodgepodge of stuff. So, you know, we don't have the ability to go back to Nolensville past. We have the ability to shape Nolensville future and make it a little bit more thought through and you know, agreed on, and rather than just a random this and a random that. So that I agree 100% with that. Thank you.
Well, I just think they're scared, and I understand that. I would be scared too. It's like presenting something to children, you know, who haven't experienced this before, and they don't know what to expect. Well, the town, we're going to have to trust them that once the concept is accepted, that the planning happens carefully beyond that, because what you're asking for is a concept. You're not asking for every little last detail, but the details of the concept can't be separated.
Yeah, we can't develop every last detail. I mean, it costs a ridiculous amount of money just to get concepts together. To go then to the next step and engineer every elevator, every single, you know, detail of every building, and every detail of every piece of landscaping and every plant. I mean, it all has to be done. But the you know, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that it takes to do that, you just don't do it until you at least have an agreement that, you know, the concept is good and everybody agrees on a concept. Then you go ahead and take it to the next level. There's a couple questions over here.
One of my neighbors is one of the guys that originally incorporated the town of Nolensville, and I was just talking to him about the way that the meeting went last week and that sort of thing, and told him I was coming. So this week, this question is kind of from him, so I can communicate it back to him. You know, his question was just, had had you gone before the planning commission before, or the town planner before last week's meeting? And what was the big hang up there with the density?
Well, again,
I'm all for the.
I'm going to answer 100% honestly the way it went down. We have had several meetings with the I guess the town staff, including Mayor Jimmy Alexander and Sarah, who's been wonderful to work with, and Don, and we've met together on a number of occasions with just me and the staff, with the architectural team and the staff, with the engineering team and the staff. We have come even from the days of the let's have gelato in Nolensville kind of ideas. From the very early concept drawings, we brought it to staff and we asked for comments, we asked for input, and really received nothing except, this is a great thing, we're all on board, you're going in the right direction, keep going. And so, quite honestly, to answer your question on that, to have the type of questions and resistance at the last planning commission meeting was a surprise. I thought we were on a much better track than that. I thought we were going to get a little bit more support from everybody, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or anything like that. I'm just saying we did not get any kind of resistance, and even in the staff comments that came back, and they asked for things like that path. Well, we originally had a 6-foot path. They wanted it to be 10-foot path. They asked for things like a playground, which we've added an area for a playground over there. They asked for several different things as a part of the process. Prior to the meeting, but they didn't mention density at all, and they didn't mention residential density at all. So, it was a big surprise, Albert, that really was.
So just out of curiosity, with the targeted density that you've got going on now, what other developments in the area are comparable?
That's a good question. You probably got me a little bit stumped. First of all, the density calculation method that's used by Nolensville is a little wonky because it doesn't necessarily address multi-story. So it's there's a couple of ways to kind of interpret the calculations there. There's another density metric called FAR, which is floor area ratio, and that's taken all the stories and the floor area and dividing it into the amount of square footage of the whole piece of land, which is 27 acres times that many 43,560 square feet. You take that million square feet of land, you take the amount of square footage of all the building, and you look at that. And the density, looking at it from that particular type of metric, is a 0.49. Well, there's a lot of things that are way higher than that, like double that. And usually what happens, especially when you get into parking lots and parking ramps, parking garages, that density number goes way up. Or when they do things like they're doing in Brentwood, where they got 5, 6, 7, 8-story office buildings, those densities are super high. So our density, is probably in mixed use at the lower end of the scale. I looked at other mixed-use developments, not in Nashville, but nationally, and a lot of them, were double the density of what we had going on. But again, we originally came to Nolensville very early on and said, well, we'd love to do 4 stories. That's kind of the place where it really starts to make a lot of sense. The mayor told me, very early on, he said, we would much rather have 3 stories and rather have higher 3 stories than 4 stories. That was something that was discussed, and so we kind of trimmed it down at that point. We trimmed it down to 3 stories and said, we can make this work. The land isn't ridiculously expensive in Nolensville. This is still feasible. This still makes sense. 4 stories would be more lucrative, but 3 stories can work. Trimming it down further to have 1 story of retail and then 1 story, because of the cost of firewalls and things like that, it just doesn't work. So that I guess very early on, there was a mention of going from 4 to 3 stories, but I think that was the only discussion regarding density. So those are super good thoughts there.
I love the project. I love what you're doing.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Matthew, is the density of this project is very similar to the one that passed for Market Square, correct?
It is, it's a bigger project, so when you look at like the unit count, and we're at, 218 units, Market Square was, I think 78 or 80 units or something like that. And, but they were 12 acres, we're 27 acres. So, the unit count to acres is, much more similar. But it is a bigger project. It's 2.5 to 3 times the project of Market Square. Yes.
What is the square footage comparison between the flats and the townhomes? And would you consider this a luxury development?
I would consider it upscale development. I mean, the word luxury, I guess that depends on what you consider luxury, right? I mean, it's not entry level, not base level. It's going to be upscale. The square footages, we haven't designed every single unit, and we haven't gone that far with the designs. Again, it's not appropriate at the concept stage, but we've looked at the range, and the range is between 1,100 square feet on the small side to, I think we've got some in there that are 1,600 square feet in the flats. And then I don't know where the townhomes ended up being, if it was 1,600 to 1,800 square feet, somewhere in there. So not really huge, but not super dinky either.
Are you taking deposits? I almost
Cash
asked
only. You had a question too, didn't you? Okay, go ahead. Mr. Gill.
Maybe it's a couple of comments and then a question. The first is, I have 2 children, one who's 5, one who's 8. So by the time one of them's a teenager, hopefully this will be done. And if this works out, I look forward to my children being able to enjoy a development like this in Nolensville if it comes to pass. Second off, when we're listening to things that could happen on your plaza, I found out it's always fun to spend other people's money, so I'll spend some of yours. Shakespeare in the Park could be fun as well. Finally, let's keep the Waffle House thing going. It's not a bad idea.
That wasn't a question, was it, Russell?
Really, I guess the last thing I can say about this is, if everyone has feelings about this matter, be it pro or con, I will say this: I've been very impressed with the way our board, mayor, and aldermen have been very receptive to hearing from the people of Nolensville on important issues. If we speak to them respectfully, reach out to them, try to share with them our thoughts and why we think that a certain way, I have every confidence that if the people of Nolensville speak, our board, mayor, and aldermen will hear, and therefore you'll get your project done. I
think the voice of Nolensville is what's a bit of a mystery as far as that goes, and yeah, I think voice your support if you can, and if you're opposed, I guess voice that too. But I really hope that we can communicate with our elected officials and the planning commission and let them know, what you feel about SouthWalk, and I sure hope that we can make it happen. Does anyone else have any more questions?
I just have
Yeah, go ahead. No, keep going.
Just a question. I saw the playground, and I am for a playground, a better playground in Nolensville. Is this playground going to be open for the public, or will it be for the townhouses where it's situated?
I think it would primarily be used if there were families in the townhomes. We didn't originally put a playground on the project. That was something we were going to do some kid-oriented things. Whether it's some interesting, I think Steve, you came up with like interesting light, interactive light, type thing. There's some ideas that we have that are maybe outside the box, okay, and creative to make SouthWalk family and kid friendly as well. But a traditional playground, with a slide and swing wasn't the original plan. We were going to try to incorporate some artistic things that were either interactive or come up with something that was special. However, the Trees and Trails Committee did ask for a play area, and so we wanted to go ahead and at least designate an area. And I'm sure that, you know, the specifics of it can be discussed. I would assume, you know, that the majority of the usage would be the people that live there. Would it be accessible by the public? Sure. I mean, why wouldn't it be? It's gonna be a little park area back there. If, you know, someone wanted to go back there and do that, I think that would be just fine. It wouldn't be fenced off or anything like that. That's not what we had in mind. But that's, you know, good concern. Yes.
Matthew, I was just gonna say, everybody talked about potentially telling BOMA what you were thinking and planning commission, et cetera. When I leave here, I will actually list all of their emails on the 411 so that y'all can access them quickly. There will also be a survey there that's called Good for Nolensville. Everybody fill it out.
Good deal. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
One question. You're looking at it from the road right now, it kind of slopes like that going
Yes.
back. Will this go up and then you'll grade flat in the town section area in the middle? Or will this kind of whole thing be on a slope?
Well, yeah, you know, the idea is that you would come up a little bit stronger in the entrance, and then you would flatten out just in the middle. But but there still would be, you know, some rise on the buildings that are, you know, building here. Yeah, there it is.
But right there.
Yeah, there you go.
There's steps and ramps, like it's all ADA, and then you have steps and ramps that follow the street all the way up.
So that's a side view of the street with the plaza right there in the middle.
Yeah, it's
So-
a section right through the middle here. So that's a cross section, and then this is from Nolensville roads here, and this is going to Haley.
And then show them where the plaza is.
Oh, this is the plaza.
The plaza's
So
right
the
there.
plaza's flat.
So you can see where it rises up at the beginning, it flattens out for the plaza, rises up, you know, again to where Rogers Lane connects to Haley Industrial Park.
It's kind of 3-tiered off, but more gradually tiered.
Yes, it'll be gradual and walkable and comfortable, and also, you know, be able to be handicap accessible as well, ADA, you know, friendly.
I think there's a 40-foot grade change from the top to Nolensville Road, so it's uphill. And we really worked with the landscape, like trying not to dig down for efficiency and just working with the site.
Yes.
I came in late, and I'm just wondering, this is a small relative crowd here. I've been to several zoning meetings, and I knew nothing about this until I missed one Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, and my neighbors pulled me aside and say, "Did you see that last night? It's right across from where we live." So do you have plans on informing the local population? Because I don't know, maybe it's just me, but is everybody informed of this? I mean, this is a small crowd.
You know, we are trying to inform people, you know, about the project. I mean, the whole planning commission and BOMA meetings are part of that process of introducing, you know, the project to the community. You know, the Facebook community pages have been used to communicate about this as well. You know, and that's the whole purpose for this meeting is to further that even more and to communicate. You know, I think a lot of people probably are watching, you know, the live stream of it, and, you know, people at home. You know, the crowd is you know, not a huge crowd, but I think the word is out there more than we realize. I'm hearing about it, you know, from other people coming back to me as well. So, you know, I've even had members of my family being told about it and find out that we were part of it. So, you know, the word's out. Is it all the way out? Well, let's get it all the way out. You know, I think that's a community effort as well.
I have a statement, maybe just a statement.
Sure.
Okay, so to what she said about not knowing, my wife did, okay?
Okay.
I live across the street. My name is on that paper. I live right across the street, you know, right down the road. And she's my neighbor.
Okay. On Nolensville Road?
Yeah, I live right up, my name's on that paper.
Okay.
I see
I'll serve it.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is on there. You could have called me and said, well, what do you think about me building this thing? Flooding's real bad right there. It rained real hard. It'll flood all them houses. What are you, did you look into that? What's it gonna do to affect, you love Nolensville, you said you did. I've lived here almost my whole life. And nobody asked me, hey, I'm building this big thing across, which is awesome. Okay, it's awesome. I think it's a great idea. Nolensville needs it. But how's it gonna affect me? It's gonna affect. It's gonna affect, and nobody's gonna say, well, it's your house, you're all right, we'll build this and we'll just let all this overcome you there. Because there's only like 5 houses right there left that are residential. So did you take that into consideration?
There was communication. Now, I didn't, start going down Nolensville Road. We did reach out to Nolen Park and being the most, impacted residential area there.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. See, there's 15 or 20 houses right there, but I'm right there.
Is your property?
Right on Britton Lane, right beside Britton Lane.
Okay,
Right
maybe
across-
because it doesn't adjoin ours. We went as far as.
It's gonna affect me because of traffic, water runoff. I mean, all that's rock.
The water has to be contained. I mean, yes, the water has to be contained.
It's gonna affect me.
The water in a good way.
No, I'm saying the water has to be contained on the property. The whole, that whole side of the property is water detention. All the water that comes from the buildings and the parking lot all goes to those water detention areas. And it has to be held there and released through filtration before so there's water quality and water quantity that has to be taken care of as part of the engineering process. It's a requirement. We don't have a choice. It's expensive, but we have to do that.
Right.
So the water concern, I think, if anything, it's going to improve things for you.
If you lived here very long, you know that all gets deep across the street.
Oh, it's flood over there. That's tough land to have over there.
So I just, that was my only statement.
We did reach out to the neighboring properties that abut this property that are, connected to it. We didn't go another layer out with letters or, trying to reach out, but we did reach out to the surrounding properties. As part of the rezoning process, we have to communicate with those. We didn't go further than that.
It's a great idea. My wife loves it. I think it's an awesome idea. It's a great plan. I could live there, empty nester too. I would
Move across the street. Come on.
be here.
Well, we're hoping the traffic signals will alleviate a lot of the traffic
But
issues.
it's just, it's gonna be, fix the road. If you do this, you get it. Fix the road.
We're gonna have to add, we'll have to add a lane in our area there. There'll have to be a signal. There's probably gonna be another signal that becomes, the town doesn't want to do that right now, even though it's warranted, but we may be able to negotiate on how to accelerate that process so that we get the traffic stopped, so people can take left turns, so people can have improved traffic, not worse traffic. And signals really change that a lot. And we need something down there anyway. And I think, breaking up the traffic gives people an opportunity to turn.
So were alternatives considered with the traffic lights? Because that is a solution, but it may not be the best solution.
Can you clarify your question a little more?
Roundabouts. There's
It's a state road, and the state controls Nolensville Road.
So the only option would be a traffic light.
The only option that I'm aware of, and I'm not a civil engineer, but from my understanding, from having conversations with the civil engineer and how things are treated on Nolensville Road, Nolensville Road is controlled by the state. It's not, Nolensville doesn't have control over the road. So they're not gonna let that, have a roundabout or be broken up. It's gonna, if anything, it's gonna get more lanes as time goes on. It's inevitable.
Well, there's already a plan in place for 2 roundabouts on Nolensville Road, so.
There is.
Well, there's plans on that being 5 lanes too.
I agree.
Okay,
There are larger circumstances.
But I think
here
that's
you guys
stuff that
aren't
is done
considering.
with the state, yeah.
It is, I agree. So, to your point, roundabouts are an option now, and traffic lights here in the town aren't necessarily the best alternative unless you want us to look like Columbia Pike and Franklin and certain other cities with other traffic light issues. So I don't see how a traffic light here and then one either at Britton Lane or Haley Industrial Boulevard is really going to alleviate a flow problem or help a flow problem. So you're stuck there.
The only way that I have to address it is to communicate with our traffic engineer, and the next conversation we have, I will ask about that. I don't have an answer for that. That's one of the questions that I just wasn't prepared for.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
It's just the downstream implications here. And
Yeah.
there's no bias here for or against the project.
No, I don't know if that's even something that we can even influence, to be honest with you. I guess I will ask the questions just for my own, sake, and it's something that never even considered or thought of.
Understand?
Yeah, that's people are thinking. Anything else? That's it? We're ready to go? All in favor, say aye.
Let's go for gelato.
Can I put a gelato shot there?
Well, in wrapping it up, and gosh, I appreciate the input. I appreciate your patience with me, trying to describe this whole thing. It's a big idea, it's a big concept, and a lot to talk about. I just want to conclude with, there's no perfect project, okay? I mean, any project that is done, it's just impossible to find perfection. I think that when we look at, hey, do the good points of this and the benefits of this outweigh the stuff that's concerning? And when you look at weigh it out, if the pros outweigh the cons, and when we stay focused on that, I think that's what we really have to examine, because you can key in on one little facet and say, well, I don't like this or I don't like that, but when you look at the alternatives, I think the cons outweigh the pros, and we don't have control. There still ends up being a lot of parking. It just is not going to be hidden behind the buildings, and there's still going to be traffic. It's just there may not be a need for a signal at that time, and it might be worse. I don't know. We just know that with this project we can solve some problems, and that there's a lot of positives, and I think they outweigh the concerns. I don't know of another alternative that's better. The next steps, I think, is just what we talked about earlier, is communicate with your alderman, your mayor, your commissioners, anyone you can reach out to that that you let them know how you feel. Let's give it the community's voice, and then we'll go back before the planning commission in June. I think it's June 11, I believe, the second Tuesday of June, and come on out. There's a public comments portion of that meeting. Please go up and talk for a couple minutes. Tell the town what you think, because that's the time to do it. Because at that time, we're gonna talk about another round, and the intention is to go to a vote and see what happens. So thank you very much. I appreciate everyone coming.